JCPenney has filed for bankruptcy, but they're not tapping out just yet, and you want to understand what's going on, that way you can make smart decisions with your investments. What's up everybody, I am Jaspreet Singh and welcome to the Minority Mindset. First, Neiman Marcus hit the dust, then J. Crew, then my favorite place to shop when I was in college, JCPenney, filed for bankruptcy. Hopefully my new favorite store, which is not Gucci, it is H&M, can pull through. While this pandemic and economic slowdown might have been the final push to push JCPenney into bankruptcy, it wasn't the reason why JCPenney went bankrupt. I mean, they've been seeing falling revenues for years now. However, although JCPenney has filed for bankruptcy, they aren't giving up just yet, and they have some very interesting restructuring plans on the way. But what might be just as interesting is if you hit that thumbs up button below. When a company files for bankruptcy, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna completely go out of business, and it looks like JCPenney is fighting to live another day. JCPenney has filed a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which means they're not completely shutting down, they're trying to restructure their business. You can compare that to a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which means your business is done for. You're shutting down and you're completely going out of business. The reason this is so important for you to understand is not just so you can go and find a bunch of cheap shirts at JCPenney. Did you say they're having a sale? But because over the next couple of years, you're probably gonna see a handful more companies go bankrupt, and you wanna know what's going on behind the scenes. When JCPenney filed for bankruptcy on May 15th, 2020, they had around 850 physical stores around the world. And while you might know JCPenney as the place to get cheap shirts, they're also secretly a real estate company. JCPenney owns about $1.5 billion worth of real estate where some of their stores operate out of. The reason JCPenney filed for bankruptcy is pretty obvious. I mean, no one is buying the stuff inside of their stores, and they had like $4 billion worth of debt that they couldn't afford to make the payments on. So JCPenney started peeking around to see what they could do to come back to life, and then they got inspired by their older brother Sears, who also went bankrupt back in 2018. Sears was kind of like JCPenney because Sears had all these stores around the world where people didn't want to shop anymore, but they also owned a lot of the buildings where their stores operated. Well, a few years before Sears filed for bankruptcy, Sears split up into two separate companies. You had Sears, the store where you would go and shop, and then they split up into this thing called Seargate Growth Properties, which was a real estate investment company that owned the building where Sears operated. It looks like JCPenney is going to try to do the same thing. They're trying to split up into two companies as well. One is JCPenney, the retailer, where you can go and buy cheap clothes, and the second is this real estate investment company that owns the buildings where JCPenney operates. The way it would work is JCPenney, the retailer, would now have to pay rent to their other company, this real estate investment company, to operate their store. There's a couple reasons why they would want to do this. First is more of a legal reason, because if your business now has to completely shut down and declare that you're going out of business, now you'd be forced to sell everything your business owns and give whatever money you can to the banks until you pay off all your debt. Once you pay off all your debt, the extra money is for the shareholders. Well, if JCPenney, the store, doesn't own any physical real estate, now JCPenney, the store's debt holders, can't force JCPenney to sell real estate because JCPenney doesn't own any real estate. The real estate is owned by a separate real estate investment company. Second, this move can help JCPenney raise more money to help them try to stay alive. We mentioned this on our free finance and business newsletter, but this new JCPenney real estate company, I don't know what it's going to be called yet, but this company plans on selling up to 35% of its equity or ownership in this company on the stock market as a way to raise money for the company. Then this real estate company plans on selling a lot of its properties through something called a sale leaseback. Essentially what that means is JCPenney is going to sell the building to somebody else, and then JCPenney is just going to start paying rent payments to this new owner. So these are essentially ways for JCPenney to protect themselves in the short term, raise some extra cash, and have money to reinvest and restructure their business. By the way, if you are looking for an easy way to stay up to date on what's happening on the top finance and business news like this, that's why we created our free finance and business newsletter, where our team first breaks down our top finance and business news, and then we show you how this news affects your wallet. That way you can be smart with your money. Our newsletter is completely free, and you can subscribe to our free finance and business newsletter by clicking the link up here or by clicking the link in the description Balau! By the way, our financial news emails are separate from our financial education emails. The risk is if these measures don't work, then JCPenney is going to be pushed into a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which means liquidation, which means now they're going to have to shut down all their stores, shut down their business, sell everything, and now they're completely done. Oh, and JCPenney has kind of a tight schedule as well because the bankruptcy court gave them until July 15th to figure out their exact restructuring plan, and they have to hit certain milestones by then, and if they don't, then the court's gonna force JCPenney into a liquidation. That means they'd be forced to go out of business. Practically speaking, this is going to be an uphill battle for JCPenney because, well, this virus is gonna keep people from wanting to shop in stores for at least the foreseeable future. Plus, JCPenney's name brand has kind of gotten hurt over the last few years because people haven't been happy with their quality of product and service that they've been receiving, which is probably why people stopped shopping at JCPenney. So in order for JCPenney's bankruptcy and restructuring to be successful, they need to take this extra cash that they can raise and then reinvest it into the JCPenney name, rebuild their online store, and then make enough sales from their online store to now not only pay the regular expenses, but help pay off all this extra debt too. Remember, they have like $4 billion worth of debt that they can't pay off. To cut some of their costs, they announced that they're going to be shutting down some of their 850 stores and they're going to be firing a good chunk of their 85,000 employees. So what this means for you as an investor is, one, the most obvious. When you are investing in companies, look at their financials and make sure they have enough cash to withstand a long economic slowdown. Two, the commercial real estate industry is gonna get hurt. People already weren't shopping in malls because of Amazon, and now people aren't shopping in malls because of this pandemic. If stores in malls aren't making any money, that means they're not gonna have money to pay their rent. And if they're not paying rent, that means the shopping mall owner isn't going to be making any money. And if they're not making money, they're not going to have money to pay their bank for their loan payments. So if you are investing in REITs, real estate investment trusts, look at how much exposure they have to dying shopping malls, because if they have a lot of exposure to bad shopping malls, then they're probably going to get hurt. If you're investing in banks, look at how much exposure they have to shopping mall debt. Because if shopping malls are struggling, then they're not going to be able to pay their banks, which means these banks are going to get hurt. And if you are investing in insurance companies, look at how much exposure they have through credit default swaps on these shopping mall loans. A credit default swap is essentially insurance against an investment going bust. So insurance companies would sell these credit default swaps to banks saying that, hey banks, if somebody defaults on your loan, don't worry, just buy this insurance and we will pay you money if somebody defaults on their loan. Well, if shopping mall owners aren't making any money, they're not going to be able to make the loan payments to their banks, which means some of them will default, which means banks will then go over to the insurance companies and say, okay, we want to exercise our rights on this credit default swaps so you can pay us, and that would hurt the insurance companies. And third, our economic recovery is going to be tricky. On one hand, people need to be able to go out and shop and spend their money without being scared of getting sick. But even if things went back to normal today, many businesses like JCPenney will not be able to recover from this hardship, and they'll still be forced to lay off many employees. That means we're going to continue to see more and more people lose their jobs. At the same time, we're in a shrinking economy where the number of jobs out there is getting smaller too. This, on a consumer level, means that it's going to be harder for people to go out and shop because they're going to have less money. It's going to be harder for people to afford their mortgage payments and their car payments. Again, it is too early to tell what's going to happen with JCPenney because we need to see exactly how they're going to restructure their company, and the economy is like a broken puzzle right now too, with so many different pieces trying to be fit together. This is why it's so important for you to stay up to date on what's happening in the top finance and business news. And remember, I got the link to our free newsletter in the description below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, share it with one friend, that way we can help spread the word. If you want to learn more about why companies are cutting their dividends and how this can be an opportunity for you, I already made a video on it, and you can watch this video on YouTube by clicking this button right over here. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling.